Esas armas desaparecen, sí. Sí, murió en estos días. Que lo acusan de que él fue el que voló el avión de 76 personas a Cuba.
You know, whatever proposed military.
Dímelo.
Posada
Carriles. Él llevó armas para allá, lo que ustedes no son capaces de creer. Cuando la guerra contra Somoza.
For September 10th.
Okay. At City Hall, 5
City
minutes.
Hall, September 10th at 8 p.m. at City Hall.
Ahí estaba el arma terrible.
I know.
Había todo tipo de armas.
We're going to start the meeting.
Cinco.
A special commission meeting, Thursday, July 26, 2018 at 8:01 p.m. Commissioner Chamber, 500 Southwest, 109th Avenue. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Clerk will note the absence of Mayor Lopez, Commissioners Borrero, and Commissioner Diaz, who's out of town.
And will you please stand up for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's do the invocation. Commissioner Villanueva, will you do us the honor, please?
Oh, thank you so much. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for gracing us with life, with liberty, with the pursuit of happiness. Thank you for the health of our families. Thank you for our great city. Lord, can you please protect our military, our law enforcement, our first responders? Can you please place your blanket of security over our loved ones who are suffering in this moment, particularly my mother who's going through her third round of chemotherapy. This is her third time with cancer. Can you please bless all those people who are going through the same sickness, the same disease. Give us the strength and patience to carry on. It is in your name that we only pray. Amen.
Amen. Do you have any public comments?
None.
Thank you.
No, you will. I'm sorry to hear that. But no, I didn't know.
Let's kick it ass.
No.
Se ve con caso.
Okay, so we're gonna go to 5. A resolution of the City of Sweetwater determining the proposed millage rate for fiscal year 2018-2019, the rollback rate and the date, time and place for public hearing as required by law. Directing the city clerk to file said resolution with the Miami-Dade County Property Appraisal pursuant to the requirements of Florida statutes and the rules and regulations of the Department of Revenue of the state of Florida, provided for transmittal and an effective date trim required.
May I,
Go ahead.
in this moment, is very clear. My taxes similar last year. For 23 years, never vote for us. Let me explain for why. La renta es terrible. Food, la comida es bárbara. El gas de la gasolina, ni se hable. Los taxes, ni hablar. El salario, por favor, hay quien tenemos la dicha de poder ganar un buen sueldo y hay quien no lo tiene. El son pásenla, terrible. Y para acabarla de matar, las cámaras. Y por eso, exactamente, pensando yo en eso, pensando en mi pueblo, la cual me he elegido, porque nosotros somos nombrados aquí para elegirlo y defenderlo. No mirar amistades ni mirar nada, defender a mi pueblo. Y por eso yo llevo 39 años aquí en mi pueblo y te he votado siempre en contra de los impuestos. Y aquí estoy haciéndolo, igual que el año pasado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I understand Commissioner Duaso's reluctance to consider any sort of tax hike or whatever, but this is not a tax increase. This is not a tax hike. This is a trim cap. You could set the cap at 10. You could set it at the 5 and change that's requested in here. You can set it anywhere in between them. Whatever it's set at, you can always lower it. There's going to be several meetings in August and several meetings in September. The final millage, the actual final rate, is not set until the last week of September, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Clerk.
Correct.
So you really have 2 months and change to consider this. What I urge the commission to do, we did not arrive, the finance department did not pick a millage and then work backwards to figure out how to plug in numbers. The finance department has drafted a budget that almost 50% of which is for the police department for public safety, with the addition of several new officers for the police department, and then calculated the millage from that figure. Now, obviously, there is room to tweak that budget into the future, but I ask simply that this should not be politicized. This is simply the setting of a working figure from which we can all come down in the next couple of months. But there's no sense in crippling your negotiation ability or crippling your ability to address the budget if you will have 2 months to consider the figures in the future.
Mr. Chief of Staff, sir, always a pleasure to be in your presence.
Commissioner, not as much of a pleasure it is for me to be in yours.
So, just a quick history lesson. Our millage rate was 2.74 in 14-15.
Yes.
In 15, the mayor proposed an 8.5 millage increase.
No. The mayor proposed a working millage cap of 8.5, and as you will recall, that included payment in full of the $2 million that was owed to regions on a line of credit because we could not be sure that we would be able to sell the land.
I remember that. Keyword being he proposed an 8.5 millage increase. The semantics is really irrelevant. If I could just finish.
Actually, the semantics are very relevant because what we're talking about is the working figure for the budget, not the actual.
All right, let me just finish my thought process.
The millage is actually set in September. You're setting the trim cap. 2 different things.
Right. He proposed
a trim cap
of 8.5. It was the millage was set at 4.5, and the next year's fiscal budget, which is now, he's proposing a trim cap of a 5.1. Our current millage rate is 4.1. So far, we're in agreement?
4.2 something. 4.251.
4.251.
And you missed a year in between, by the way.
Which year was that?
Well, no, you missed the previous year, which is 15-16. So you started off with 16-17.
So I started off with 2.74.
That was 15-16.
Right.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of my analogy.
Okay. Yes. That was the year that almost bankrupted the city.
Right. So, which brings me to my next point. How much do we have in reserves right now?
Mr. Finance, interim finance director. About 2.6.
Okay, I heard it was about 3 mil. So we'll round it off. 2.8, 2.6. Great. Considering that we only had, commissioners remind me, $200,000 in reserves at one point.
Well, that's not reserves actually. That was actually working capital. We had no reserves. We had 2.5 million at the end of fiscal year 12-13. At the end of fiscal year 13-14, we had nothing.
I remember. So, which brings me to my next point. Now we have 2.5, 2.8, whatever the semantics are. My concern is that we approve a budget. Mm-hmm. The mayor spends that budget as he sees fit. We've asked for administrative view access of our financial logo system. We don't know what's being spent. We don't know what money's in what accounts.
Well,
so I think if I may finish. So I think it would behoove the mayor to work with the commission, grant us access finally, so I don't have to go through any procedures to force the mayor to do so. And I really don't want to do that. I want to get away from this whole suing the mayor and the whole 9 yards. That costs us $1 million. But that being said, since now we have $2.8 million, when the millage was increased to 4.5 mil, it was proposed at a $4.8 million increase to the budget. The commission lowered it to $3.8 million. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What year was that?
That was last year.
Last year was
4.251. No, million, not millage.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So now we have an increase of $3.8 million to the budget.
Okay.
And now he's proposing an additional increase of 2.4 million. Is
No.
that accurate?
No, because the two mistakes you've made there is that you've made a mistake of assuming that this is a budget that the mayor is proposing as a final budget. No, this is not even a tentative budget. It is the working budget from which we derive the trim figure, the trim cap.
Sure.
These are dynamic working documents. It's a dynamic working figure and a dynamic working document. The budget is itself essentially a list of what the things that we need to pay for over the course of the next year if we want to add 4 police officers to the department, which I think everybody wants to. If we want to have more changes like this, like we've had in the chambers throughout the rest of City Hall. There are things that have been proposed that the mayor believes are wise ideas to accomplish, to strive for, and that these things would, when derived, the figure is 5.1, whatever, 5 and change. That doesn't mean it's going to be the final figure. As I said 2 years ago when I proposed the 8 mil trim cap, that was simply a working figure. And I said that you can pull the records, and I think you and I actually had a discussion on this at that time when you were a police officer. That was simply a cap, a working figure. No one expected that it would actually, it couldn't even have passed, Commissioner, because in order to pass the 8 mils, it would have had to have gone a referendum. I mean, it was a working figure. That's
Right,
all
so I
it
get
was.
that. So the proposal is obviously a working figure. He's
Yes, sir.
proposing a 5.1 mil. My concern is this. Why is he not here?
He's not here because 2 things. Number one, he had a vacation that was long since scheduled. It was scheduled well into the previous year. And as the city clerk can attest, because of last year's issues with the hurricanes, the tax dates have been pushed back by the county. So when the mayor calculated or estimated his vacation, when he set it down, he expected this meeting to occur next week.
I get
He would
that.
be back.
I get that. So today's my birthday.
Correct.
I'm
Happy
here.
birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. So my mom had chemotherapy today. My wife has to have emergency gallbladder surgery. I'm running a business, and I'm busy too. But I put that aside because I put the city first. The city to me is like country. So it's God, country, family. That's how I operate. The mayor's missed a lot of meetings, and when we're setting the trim, and I want to dialogue with him. Although I enjoy our dialogue, Ralph. I want to speak to him. I want to see what. If I could just finish, Ralph. I want to see what his views are, without politicizing. He should be here. I think if I could just finish, Ralph. I think it's pretty disrespectful. He's missed a lot of meetings. I want. At no point in time am I trying to hinder the administration, although I've been accused of that. But a 5.1 cap, I want to see that lowered. With that, I yield.
Just to address your issues specifically, as we've discussed many times before, and in fact as you agreed prior to becoming commissioner, this is a meeting of the city commission. It is not a meeting of the city commission and the mayor. The mayor's job is to appear or in person or through representatives. He has provided his chief of staff and his interim finance director and the deputy finance director. They are all here. They can answer these questions for you.
Yeah, but I want to hear from him.
I understand you wanted to hear from him, and I will welcome you to come to lunch with us next week. I will even pay for it.
Or maybe he can show up to commission meetings, and
Or,
we can have it there.
You do have 2 commissioners who are missing tonight. I don't see you discussing the matters with them.
Well, they haven't
just
missed.
gonna
They
have
haven't missed a lot of meetings, Ralph. Listen, Ralph, I love how you defend him. It's cool. It's your job. I get it. I've been in your position. I was chief of staff, but he needs to be here.
Oh, I understand.
So respectfully, please convey the message if he can please be
I
here.
will certainly convey the message. He is always eager to hear what you have to say, sir. So I suggest that you pick up the phone and actually call him.
Anybody else has anything to say?
I think this is too hard.
Okay, but
So I propose a 4.5 cap.
nobody wanted to speak.
4.5?
Cap, which means they can't go
Yeah,
higher
yeah, I
than that.
know.
What do you guys say?
No, I propose 4.215.
Then we're gonna leave it as is.
Yes.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
So if we do that, the mayor's going to come back and say we're you know, FEMA's is 2 million, and he's gonna come up with a bunch of bogus numbers, and then we're gonna sit here and do what we always do. We're gonna go through each line item.
We have to do that.
I agree, and cut. Now I'm gonna tell you what I'm trying to do. I want to hire more police officers. I know everybody here does, so I have no problem with a 4.251, and we'll work down from that. But it's not gonna leave us much wiggle room.
If I may, I would like the interim finance director to explain to you what the effect of that kind of a budget cut would be on the proposed budget, and also the net savings to the average household. Because when we went through this deal last year, Commissioner Borrero successfully moved to lower the millage by a quarter point, and the savings to the typical homeowner would be approximately $60 a year back then, as I recall. Now, one other thing I would like to raise here.
Actually, that was my motion.
One other thing I would like to raise here, because Commissioner Duasso mentioned this. He mentioned rent. I don't know how many of you are landlords, but you run a business. You are running a business. If you get a tax cut, more than likely you're just going to pocket the money. Rents always go up, but they never come down. So if there is a tax cut to the millage and to real estate taxes, it's not going to be realized by our residents in those buildings. It's going to be realized by the landlords who probably don't even live here. Now, with that said, I would like the interim finance director to comment on what the proposed, motion, the effect that it'll have on the proposed budget, and the actual effect that it'll have, the benefit that will be bestowed on our residents, or our typical residents, which will be relatively low. Excuse me.
Sir, before you say anything, I want to say something, to the finance, so he can explain this to us. My concern is this: Dade County appraisal has increased the value of the property to 6.5%. So even though if we request 4.2, they're going to pay more taxes. So even if we keep it the same, the taxes are going to go higher, because you're not going to be paying the same amount of money that the value of your house in 2017, what it's going to be now in 2000, because it has increased to 6.5%. So we have to take that in consideration, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I just read it that it did went up to 6.5%.
You are correct. Let me introduce myself, Carlos Sintrom. I send myself the resume, introduced myself to you guys via email. I think I called everyone, and it was pleasant to talk to you. My office is still open at any time that you want to come in and discuss this with numbers. I know numbers are hard. I was a law enforcement officer, happened to be an accountant at the same time too, and people depended on myself just to go and transmit what the numbers means to you. The suggested the numbers that we're talking about, you're talking about a loss of $1.4 million to the proposed budget. The impact of that obviously is going to be cuts on other things, such as maybe salaries, maybe projects that we got going. One thing about the reserve, one thing I saw in places that I have been, if you don't have reserves, you're going to have problems with storms, tropical, other things that those reserves are for. They're not just to be taken out, I guess. You commissioners, I guess, will control that. But the reserves are for you, in case an emergency does occur. If we don't have reserves, you're not going to be able to do much. You're going to depend on FEMA. I happened to go on to Puerto Rico right after a hurricane, a week after that, because I do have family up there. And I worked over there for almost 2 months, and I saw the impact of not having money, how much the impact that they had. So I just want to let you know that the reserves are for that, and to be used for emergency case basis too. And obviously you will dictate other things too. Is there anything I can answer to you? But the impact of your submission, the 4.25, I think, will be about $1.4 million minus in the budget.
Through the chair. What we're trying to ascertain, sir, and pleasure meeting you. Thank you for calling me. What we're trying to ascertain as a governing body is what kind of financial instrument we have. Since we don't have access to our logos, and give you a little background, I presented legislation to give us full view administrative access to our logos financial system. It passed unanimously. The mayor vetoed it. It came back to the commission. The commission unanimously voted to overturn the veto, and that was several months ago. So the mayor is circumventing our charter, the will of the commission, our governing body. In order for us to make an informed decision, we need to have our full view access of our financial systems. We can budget $500,000 and allocate that towards any line item. But if we don't know how much of that budget has been spent, because whatever's not spent goes to reserves. And I'm all for having reserves. But the reality is we don't know what monies are being spent. And in order to have an efficient and transparent form of government, the executive branch and the legislative body have to have an open dialogue. We can't have an open dialogue if the mayor doesn't show up. Now, I understand that the mayor's staff and chief of staff are here, and that's great. You guys, Ralph is always here. I think Ralph's excellent. But Ralph, as the chief of staff, works at the will of the mayor. We do not. We work at the will of the electorate, of the voters. And when we explain to our voters, when we explain to our residents why we don't have money or why we don't have reserves, we can't give definite numbers. So your explanation, although extremely accurate, you have to understand our point of view. We are running blind, and the administration is asking us to trust him, and I don't. Give me full view access as is legally granted, and I will look at things, not politically, efficiently, effectively, and professionally. And I will make my determination and vote my 1/7. And if I can lobby for any particular thing, like my police department, like public safety, I can tell you every single commissioner here what they like. Commissioner Yanyo and Commissioner Jose Alonso are in the elderly center every day. And if the food is cold, they get pissed off. Am I right or am I wrong? Yes, if the food is horrible, so that's their baby. And they're dealing with constituent service. Commissioner Duaso's been here for just as long as Commissioner Barreto. So we just want to be respected. Now, I've only been here a year, but I don't feel like I'm being respected by the administration. And all I'm asking for is a mutual respect. That's all. So when you come up here, new, like I told you over the phone, you have a very daunting task. An extremely daunting task. Because it's going to get to a point where you're going to say, I don't need this. And I don't want that to happen. I want the employees of the city of Sweetwater to get raises, to get benefits, to get equal treatment, to have a great retirement. Right now, our city employees, our civilians, have one of the worst retirements in the state of Florida.
I agree with you.
Our infrastructure needs a lot of work. Our infrastructure in the north end needs a lot of work. But what we want to do is look at our financial systems and say, we can take funding from, the mayor wants to buy chairs, and he wants to spend $200,000 in chairs, and we put that in capital improvements. That's what we do. So though I respect your position, I want you to understand mine. And I hope that I've conveyed that message respectfully,
Yes, you have.
elegantly, and professionally. And
Well,
with that, I yield.
I do want to tell you that my office is open.
Thank you,
I
sir.
don't know what the other finance directors have done here in the past, but I work with an open door. Although I'm the finance director, soon to be the finance director, I consider myself working for the citizens. I have done that for the last 37 years of as public servant. My office will be open. Having access to logo, and I tell you, that's a political move between the mayor and you, but I can tell you, I am available to explain it to you because I had problems when I came in understanding logos because we use another system in the
Because
federal
it
system.
sucks.
Believe it or not, it's much better than what the FBI has.
Believe it or not, I'm the one that implemented the logo
Yeah.
system, and it
Yeah.
sucks. But at least we want access to be able to see what
Yes.
we have.
And I can tell you that if you do, even if we give you access, you're still going to need my service in the service of our fans because they're the ones that can tell you how to guide yourself or travel to it.
And that's what we've asked.
So, and we're here to help you with that. If the access is granted, we're still available. So my office is still available. The ladies here are I'm very happy that I have a group of professional persons working with me. They understand the systems left and right. They know what's going on, and that we're here to help you out. So even if you're still having those battles, I'm available.
Hopefully it comes around.
Okay.
So what do we want to do?
So before we make a decision, we have to just understand that this is the cap. Doesn't mean like it can always go down, it will never go up. So we have to come up with a figure because this is the cap, you know.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me clarification my position. Similar last year, 4.1 or 4.2?
Two.
4.2. Similar last year. This year.
And the cap.
When the running for council, I tell my president, I say, never vote for up. Say, oh, you wait next year, let me see next year. Now next year. Maybe one, but in this moment, 4.2, similar last year. This is my vote.
Actually, Commissioner, if I may, the year before annexation, the millage went up from 3 and change to 4.65, and you voted for it. But aside from that, I would urge the Commission not to make that mistake. We're going down exactly the same path that we went down in the summer of 2015, where there was a motion to adopt as a trim cap the previous year's millage. And it gave the Commission no wiggle room at all, no room with which to, to adequately address the figures. If you're going to reduce the millage, the trim cap, I would urge you to pick a number that gives you some maneuverability. With all due respect, using last year's figure is going to box you in exactly as it did 3 years ago. And I ask you to set it at a higher figure than that.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Coincidentally, at 4.251, the
1, 2.
mayor and the police department hired 8 additional officers. So it seems as though, based on that same budget, they can hire another 8 officers because they weren't budgeted for them. So my motion is for 4.251 as the cap.
What motion is?
4.251.
The same as last
I'm reiterating what
Say last year,
Commissioner
we will-
Barreto said. So if you want it to be your motion, I'll second
Yes,
it.
I wanted the same from
May I?
last year, so I take
4.251.
the same
That's gonna
from
be the
last
cap.
year.
That's my
The
cap.
cap.
May
So
I,
we have a first and a second.
para explicar a mi
have to
pueblo
say.
que tanto me ha llamado.
Ese es el cap.
Ay, no, es el cap. Pero es decisivo. Se puede bajar, pero no subir.
Exactly.
Para decírselo a mi pueblo. Aquí estoy yo respondiéndole a ustedes lo que ustedes me pidieron a mí. Pero sepan ustedes que cuando caiga el presupuesto en nuestras manos, y el nuevo director debe saberlo, line by line, ahorramos mucho dinero. Por mi experiencia de 23 años aquí en esta ciudad, cuando se lee line by line, se ahorra mucho dinero.
You should also remember, if I might add, that residents do want lower taxes, but they also want services. And what you're going to end up doing is cutting services, and cutting road improvements, and cutting sidewalk repairs, and cutting employees, and cutting.
Is the mayor going to fire employees?
I'm not the finance director, I'm not the mayor. But I need to see what the impact of this figure is going to be on our budget. So as of today, as of this very moment, I have no idea.
I feel very confident that a 4.251, if the mayor decides to fire employees, that's not gonna make him a very nice guy. So, motion
City Attorney would
4.251.
like
To clarify for the record,
Let me clarify. May I, Comisionado Villanueva?
Yes, sir.
You say 5 employees.
The mayor and the police administration hired, I think, 7 or 8 full-time officers.
I no have secretary for many years.
Right.
No have office.
Right.
Where?
We don't
you know
have
where?
we don't have an office.
Where? You know when any appointment?
So we have a first and a second, Madam Chair.
Yes, he wants
To-
to say something.
to clarify, I want a clarification on the motion. What we currently have now is 4.215,
Oh.
but I keep
No,
hearing
5-1.
5-1, no
4.2.
1-5, 5-1.
4.21.
5-1.
5-1.
4.215.
I say similar last
Your
year.
motion is for what specific amount? 4 point.
I think their motion, Mr. City Attorney, is to set the trim, this year's trim, at last year's millage. Is that correct, sir?
The same.
Yes.
Okay, whatever that
Okay.
figure is, 2 or 20,000, that's what they want.
Leave it at 4.251, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you.
My motion, or Commissioner Barreto's motion, whichever first or second,
The same.
is 4.251.
That's right.
4-2.
4-2-1.
Commissioner Barreto made the
4.251.
motion,
No,
The same
Commissioner
as
Villanueva.
My
Commissioner
motion,
Villanueva.
4.251.
and Commissioner Barreto seconded the motion.
Yes.
¿De dónde tengo que say 5-1? Why?
El,
The
los
why
change
now?
últimos
is
números.
years now.
Now.
Say now.
4-2, okay.
4.215.
So we're amending the resolution right now.
We're setting the cap to
They
four
set
point two
the
five.
cap.
That's
The
what I'm
cap.
saying, we're amending.
Yes, the cap. The final is later on, okay? So, ma'am, we have a motion
And second.
and a second?
Yes.
Yes, we have a motion and a
Yes,
second.
we have a motion and a second.
Just roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Holtz Alonso,
Yes.
Commissioner Duazo,
4-2. 4-2,
Commissioner
yes.
Barreto,
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanio.
Yes.
Mi pueblo triunfó.
Okay, now.
Now, for the record, I just want to get on the record that we have, the first public hearing is going to be at 8 p.m. September 10th, 2018 at City Hall, 500 Southwest 109th Avenue in Commission Chambers.
What time?
8 p.m.
Cool.
Sí, sí, sí. Arriba, sí.
Okay,
Le va
and,
molesto.
before I move on, I know we have a lot of things to work on the budget, but remember, regardless, if we kept 4.251, the taxpayers are gonna pay more money. That's no doubt about it, because the value of the property went 6.5.
Right, but at least it's not gonna be our fault. So we're gonna do our job to make sure that we can
But you know that they're gonna pay more.
lessen the pain.
And that's what I'm saying, if we're concerned about the residents without politics, we're not talking about politics here.
Yeah.
You know, if that's the case, we have to take that in
And,
consideration.
and through the chair, another thing to take into consideration, when preparing the budget, these budget numbers are projections.
Exactly.
That means the administration has no idea what's coming in. We know that we have monies coming in from the buildings. We
Right.
have impact and concurrency fees that have not been received or calculated yet. Just from the global project is $2.4 million in impact and concurrency fees, and I didn't see it in the budget, which means either they miscalculated it or
That's what I said. When we
so
come
I
do
think
the
we're gonna
workshop-
be fine. And if we need a budget amendment later on, because nobody here wants to fire employees. Matter of fact, I think our employees deserve a raise. But I'm sure we'll start debating and dialoguing that as
Yeah,
we go
that's
through the
what I
budget
said.
workshops.
When we start working on it, we can take that in mind, that I'm pretty sure that based on the situation that is out there, remember, and you know, because you were also, a year ago, you were knocking houses, and they can tell you, for the elderly person that have his house
They
paid,
can't afford it.
it's very hard to just, for us to come out now and say, okay, I'm sorry, your value is for your house, boom, and they have to pay more money. Just like, so we have to keep it in mind when we all work together,
I agree.
okay? So let's move on to number 6.
Through
This-
the chair,
Go ahead, man.
Commissioner, not only the raise, the insurance.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
can tell you.
Listen,
I can
absolutely.
go-
We're on the same page.
I can go.
We are.
And tell you everything I've gone through for
It's
the
too-
past 4 months.
$200 more.
No. What I went through with my insurance, I can imagine the employees, and we have a higher insurance than
Yes.
they do.
Yes, I completely agree. I'm glad we're on the same page. It's
Yeah.
time to start taking care of our employees.
Okay. So we're gonna go with number 6. Discussion authorization request regarding Damas Cruceñas de Miami Inc., non-profit organization sponsored by Commissioner Barreto, event dated Saturday, September 29, 2018 at Jorge Mascanosa Building, Commissioner Barreto.
Move.
Second.
Wait, I also requested waiving all the city park rental fees and police officers.
So we need to amend that.
Yes.
So
Yeah, because it doesn't specific,
Okay,
it's
so
not
please-
specified on the,
can I
Waiving
move forward.
all the fees.
can I elaborate? How many people are you gonna through the chair? How many people are you gonna have at the event?
Maybe no more than 100,
No,
maybe
so
less.
So then
police officer.
you don't
Or
necessarily
just in
need
case.
you don't need a police officer. Our guidelines are 250
200,
people,
yes.
but I recommend you have one. So definitely waive the fees
Just in
and the
case.
cleaning.
Damas cruceñas.
And the cleaning too.
So-
So all the expenses,
All
all the
the
fees,
expenses.
all the
May I-
fees.
Because this is a
May I
non-profit
preguntar lo de
organization
la
and they help
cruceña?
the children that need it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think anytime a commissioner has an event, I think we should unanimously waive the
Yes.
police and the cleaning fees because our cleaning services
rentals.
employees
Yeah, all
and the
fees,
rental.
all fees.
All fees.
Yeah, let's start doing that. So, yeah.
Please,
Well,
cuento
I'll
tú,
pay for
comisionada
police
Barreto.
officers.
Damas cruceñas.
It's Bolivia. There
Ah,
are
Bolivia.
organizations that they help the children in
Cruceñas son
the
bolivianas.
United States
Bolivianas.
and Bolivia.
That's
Bolivia,
okay,
so-
boliviana.
Okay, so it's gonna be amended, the motion, as all the fees are gonna
All
be,
the fees.
Okay.
But what is the
Who
event?
made the motion to amend?
September 29. It's like a
She
lunch.
made. But
It's
what
a
is,
lunch.
what is it?
Just to get together with all the Bolivia people and then working for the needed children.
Vayan al reposo.
Would you notify the people in the park because I wanted to be sure that they know that we approve this.
Okay.
okay, so
Have
will
you set
be as amended,
Have you
all
scheduled
the
a date in the
fees
park?
will be,
September 29, yes.
Yeah, we'll be-
Right now,
I
right
will
now,
notify them.
right now,
it's
yeah,
it's a discussion, so we can do a motion.
for a resolution to waive.
No, it's not resolution,
know-
it's to
okay.
approve,
To approve.
Okay.
to approve the event
To
without
authorize, okay.
any fees. All the
Any
fees gonna
fees.
be, excluded,
Right.
Okay.
okay? So,
So,
there's
there a
a
second?
motion, a second,
Yeah.
Okay.
Duaso
Who made
motioned,
the-
I seconded
a
it.
second,
Commissioner
and then we have to do all in favor.
Cross.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
Move.
Move.
we go.
Así se llama la gente de Bolivia, mi hija, te puedo decir.
Bueno, ya, meeting's over.
When are we gonna have a budget workshop? Because we have a lot to discuss.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry about your mom,
Thank you.
Así se
because
llama.
The meeting
my
is
sister-in-law just passed away
Meeting
because
is
of
over,
the
we
same
want
thing.
to do a budget
Really?
And I know what that is.
George's sister?
workshop. Anybody
George's
can
sister?
call it
My
for,
sister-in-law.
George,